Ladies and gentlemen, how a narcissist destroys themselves while trying to destroy you. This is not about revenge. It's about awareness, about understanding what truly happens when someone tries to break your spirit, control your mind, and slowly erase your sense of self. Tonight, I want you to listen closely, not just with your ears, but with your memory, your emotions, and your lived experience. Because what you're about to hear may explain years of confusion in a single moment. Stay with me, because by the end of this message, you won't just understand what happened to you. You'll understand why choosing to walk away was the most powerful decision you ever made. A narcissist goes to war with the world, but the battlefield they never see is inside themselves. From the outside, it looks like confidence, control, even strength. They appear decisive, dominant, unshaken. But beneath that surface is a constant internal struggle. They are desperately trying to escape. They attack others not because they are powerful, but because they are afraid of what happens when they are left alone with their own thoughts. Their need to win, to dominate, to feel superior is not ambition, it is survival. Every argument becomes a fight for identity. Every disagreement feels like a threat to their existence. When a narcissist tries to destroy someone else, they believe they are protecting themselves. They think breaking your confidence will secure their position. They believe silencing your truth will preserve their image. What they don't realize is that each act of cruelty strengthens the very thing they are running from. Their inner emptiness grows louder with every lie. Their fear deepens with every manipulation. The more they try to control the external world, the more chaotic their inner world becomes. While you are processing pain, learning lessons, and slowly healing, they are locked in the same mental loop. They cannot reflect without shame. They cannot change without admitting fault. So they keep fighting even when there is no enemy left. This is why they never find peace. This is why they are always restless, defensive, and dissatisfied. Their greatest enemy was never you. It was the part of themselves they refused to face. And in trying to destroy you, they only strengthened the very battle they can never win. And that internal war doesn't stay contained. It spills into everything they touch. Because when someone is fighting themselves, they begin to rot from the inside out, and the first thing that decays is their integrity. A narcissist cannot maintain peace within, so they try to manufacture control outside. They believe that if they can dominate situations, people, and outcomes, the chaos inside them will finally quiet down. But control is not a cure. It is a slow poison. At first, they bend the truth just a little, a harmless exaggeration, a selective memory, a small justification that feels necessary, but once integrity is compromised, it doesn't break in half, it erodes grain by grain. Each lie makes the next one easier. Each manipulation makes the next one feel deserved. And without realizing it, they begin to lose the very thing that once made them human and relatable. Their peace disappears because peace requires honesty, and honesty would force them to face themselves. The more they cling to control, the more fragmented they become. They can no longer relax into who they are, because who they are no longer feels real. Every interaction becomes a performance. Every relationship becomes a transaction. They are no longer living, they are managing impressions. And that is exhausting. That is why narcissists are always tense, always reactive, always watching for threats that aren't there. Their identity becomes a house built on sand, and they spend their lives frantically trying to keep it from collapsing. Meanwhile, you begin to regain something they are losing: your sense of self, your clarity, your ability to sleep at night without rehearsing lies. As they tighten their grip on control, they loosen their grip on reality. And slowly, quietly, the life they tried to dominate begins to slip through their fingers. And when integrity fades and control becomes their only language, something else begins to happen that they never anticipate. People start pulling away. Not dramatically, not all at once. Just enough to create distance they can't quite explain. Manipulation may give a narcissist short-term power, but it comes at the highest long-term cost: isolation. At first, they mistake fear for respect and compliance for loyalty. They believe people stay because they are admired, when in reality, people stay because they are careful. But manipulation cannot build real connection. It can only maintain appearances for so long. Over time, those around them begin to feel drained, confused, and emotionally unsafe. Conversations become calculated, trust erodes, affection feels conditional. And without realizing it, the narcissist becomes surrounded not by love, but by tolerance. People stop sharing openly. They stop bringing their true selves. They stop investing emotionally. The room grows quieter, even when it is full. This is where the loneliness sets in. Not the kind that comes from being alone, but the deeper kind that comes from never being truly known. Because to be known would require honesty, vulnerability, and humility, qualities the narcissist abandoned in their pursuit of control. So they stand at the center of relationships that look intact, on the surface, but feel hollow underneath. They are connected, yet disconnected, present, yet unseen. And as isolation tightens, they don't soften, they harden. They double down on manipulation, believing they need more control to fix what is slipping away. But the more they manipulate, the more people retreat. Friends become distant, partners emotionally detached, support systems quietly disappear. What remains is a growing echo where admiration once lived. Meanwhile, you're learning the opposite lesson. You discover that real power comes from authenticity, not control, from connection, not domination. And as you rebuild trust with yourself and others, you step into community again, while the narcissist, still reaching for power, finds themselves alone in the silence they created. And while they sit in that silence convinced the world has failed them, something remarkable is happening beyond their awareness. You are moving forward. The distance that once felt painful begins to feel peaceful, the confusion clears, the emotional fog lifts. Where they are standing still, you are evolving. This is the part they never prepare for, because growth requires self-reflection, and self-reflection is the one place they refuse to go. A narcissist lives in cycles. The same arguments, the same tactics, the same endings replay like a broken record. New people may enter their life, new settings may appear, but the pattern never changes because the source never changes. They blame others, rewrite history, and convince themselves they were misunderstood. But accountability would mean change, and change would mean admitting fault. So they remain trapped, repeating yesterday while calling it tomorrow. You, on the other hand, are learning from pain instead of running from it. You begin to recognize red flags you once ignored. You understand your boundaries more clearly. You stop explaining yourself to people who never listened. Every experience, even the painful ones, sharpens your awareness. What once broke you now builds you. This widening gap is where the real shift happens. Their influence weakens. They can no longer provoke the same reactions. The buttons they installed stop working. Your silence becomes calm instead of fear. Your distance becomes strength instead of loss. And to the narcissist, this feels like abandonment, even though it is simply your healing. While you are building a healthier life, they are searching for the next person to play the same role you escaped. While you are expanding, they are recycling. And that is the quiet truth. They don't move on, they start over. You move forward. And in that forward motion, without ever trying to defeat them, you leave them behind in the very cycle they created. And as you move forward, something else becomes painfully clear when you look back at them from a distance. What once looked like confidence was never confidence at all. It was armor, heavy, polished, and convincing from the outside, but worn only to hide a fear they could never admit to. True confidence is quiet. It doesn't need to dominate, prove, or intimidate. The narcissist's version is loud because it is fragile. Every boast, every dismissal, every attempt to appear superior is driven by a deep terror of being seen as ordinary, flawed, or replaceable. That fear is why they react so intensely to boundaries. It's why your independence unsettles them. It's why your healing feels like a threat. When you stop needing their approval, the illusion they built begins to crack, and what leaks through is insecurity. They cannot tolerate the idea that you no longer revolve around them because their sense of worth depends on being at the center of someone else's world. Without an audience, their performance collapses. Without validation, their confidence evaporates. This is why they chase admiration relentlessly, and why criticism, even gentle or constructive, feels like an attack. Their ego is not strong, it is exposed. Meanwhile, you are discovering a different kind of strength, one that doesn't shout, one that doesn't need permission. You begin to trust your instincts again. You feel grounded instead of reactive. Where they need to be seen, you are learning how to simply be. And that difference is everything. The narcissist mistakes fear for power and noise for authority. But the louder they become, the more obvious their insecurity is to those who are paying attention. While they are busy protecting an image, you are building a life. And slowly, without confrontation or revenge, the truth reveals itself. Their confidence was never real, and your quiet growth is something they can never fake. And once that false confidence is exposed, the losses begin to stack quietly, one relationship at a time, not in a dramatic collapse, but in a slow unraveling that the narcissist rarely notices until it's too late. Trust is always the first thing to go. People remember the broken promises, the shifting stories, the moments when something felt off but couldn't yet be explained. Even those who once defended them begin to hesitate. They listen more carefully, they watch more closely, and trust, once cracked, never returns to what it was. Love follows soon after. Not because people stop caring overnight, but because love cannot survive where safety is missing. Affection turns cautious. Warmth becomes conditional. The emotional bond thins as people protect themselves from being hurt again. What remains may look like love on the surface, but underneath, it is restraint, distance, self-preservation. The narcissist senses this withdrawal, but instead of repairing it, they resent it. They demand closeness without offering sincerity. Respect is the final loss, and it is the most permanent. Respect dies when patterns become undeniable, when apologies stop meaning change, when charm no longer masks behavior. People may remain polite, civil, even cooperative, but admiration disappears, and without respect, influence fades. Words carry less weight, authority weakens. The narcissist speaks, but fewer people truly listen. What makes this unraveling so tragic is that it is self-inflicted. No one takes these things away from them. They give them up through manipulation, control, and refusal to take responsibility. Relationship by relationship, they burn bridges while insisting they were pushed. Meanwhile, you are rebuilding something different. Trust through consistency, love through honesty, respect through boundaries. And as your circle becomes smaller but stronger, theirs grows quieter and thinner. Not because you won, but because you chose truth over power, and in the end, truth is the only thing that lasts. And as their world grows quieter and their influence fades, they begin searching desperately for a reaction from you. Because nothing accelerates a narcissist's collapse more than your calm, your silence, your boundaries, not the cold kind rooted in anger, but the steady kind born from clarity. When you stop explaining, stop defending, and stop engaging in the old emotional dance, the structure they built around you starts to crumble. A narcissist feeds on response, on emotion, on the sense that they still matter in your internal world. When you react, they feel alive. When you argue, they feel powerful. But when you choose peace over participation, you remove the fuel. And without fuel, their tactics fail. They push harder at first, testing whether the door is truly closed. Provocations become louder, accusations become sharper, but each unanswered attempt reveals something they cannot hide. They no longer have control. Your boundaries force them to face the emptiness they worked so hard to avoid. Where they once projected blame, there is now silence. Where they once rewrote narratives, there is no audience. This is why your healing feels threatening to them. It reflects back a truth they cannot escape, that their power was never real. It was borrowed from your emotional availability. While they scramble to regain relevance, you are becoming unshakable. Your strength is no longer reactive, it is rooted. You are no longer proving anything, you are protecting something. And that shift changes everything. It turns the dynamic upside down. The narcissist may tell others you are cold, distant, or changed, and they are right. You have changed. You have learned that access to you is earned, not assumed. And in enforcing that truth, you do not harm them. You simply stop saving them from themselves. Their collapse speeds up not because you attack, but because you finally step out of the way. And when you step out of the way, they mistake that moment for victory. They tell themselves they've won because you're no longer fighting back, no longer pleading, no longer reacting. In their mind, dominance equals success. Silence means surrender. Distance means defeat. But what they don't understand is that this is where the bill comes due. Because what they call winning is actually the moment they are left alone with the emptiness they've been avoiding all along. They may still boast, still posture, still tell stories where they are the hero and you are the problem. But behind closed doors, there is no satisfaction, no peace, no sense of fulfillment. Power without connection is hollow. Control without love is lifeless. They chase superiority so hard that they sacrifice meaning, and now they are left holding nothing but an image that no longer feeds them. This is the quiet tragedy of the narcissist. They can dominate a moment, a conversation, even a person, but they can never dominate emptiness. And emptiness does not applaud, it does not admire, it does not validate. It simply sits there growing heavier with time. The more they win, the more isolated they become. The more they conquer, the lonelier they feel. Because domination never fills the void it promises to heal. You, meanwhile, are discovering a deeper truth. That real victory feels calm. It feels light. It feels like freedom. You no longer need to be right, seen, or admired by someone who could never truly value you. You are not keeping score because you are no longer playing the same game. They wanted to stand above you. Instead, they stood alone. They wanted to feel powerful. Instead, they inherited emptiness. And without you there to absorb it, without you there to carry the emotional weight, they are finally forced to face the cost of the life they chose. And in that contrast, something profound settles into you. You begin to understand that what you went through did not ruin you. It revealed you. The pain stripped away illusions, but it also stripped away what was never yours to carry. You see now that your empathy was not weakness, your loyalty was not foolishness, and your capacity to love deeply was never the problem. It was simply placed in the wrong hands. What they tried to convince you was broken was actually your humanity, your ability to feel, to hope, to trust. And when they tried to tear that down, they underestimated one thing. Truth has a way of surfacing when pressure is applied. Underneath the confusion and self-doubt, your values remained intact. Underneath the hurt, your character held. You did not become smaller, you became clearer. This is where the story quietly turns in your favor, not because you hardened into someone unrecognizable, but because you learned discernment. You stopped abandoning yourself to keep the peace. You learned that love does not require self-erasure, and in reclaiming that truth, you stepped back into your own power. Not the loud kind, not the dominating kind, but the steady kind that calm. From self-respect. The narcissist tried to dismantle your sense of self so they could feel whole. Instead, you found yourself again, stronger, wiser, more aligned. And what they see now, even if they never admit it, is someone they can no longer reach, influence, or define. You are no longer who you were when they met you. You are someone who understands your worth without needing permission. And that realization is not just healing, it is liberation. What they meant to destroy became the very thing that set you free. And this is where the story reaches its quiet, undeniable truth. What happens to them was never about revenge. It was never about punishment. It was consequence. Natural, inevitable consequence, not delivered by your hands, but by their own choices, repeated long enough to shape their fate. Life responds to who we consistently choose to be, and the narcissist chose power over truth, control over connection, image over integrity. You didn't have to expose them. You didn't have to fight them. You didn't have to win anything. You simply stepped into alignment with yourself, and that alone was enough to let reality do its work. While they blamed, you reflected. While they defended, you healed. While they clung to an identity built on illusion, you built a life grounded in truth. And that difference matters. Because a life built on illusion eventually collapses under its own weight. No one can outrun themselves forever. No one can escape accountability indefinitely. The narcissist may move from person to person, place to place, story to story, but everywhere they go, they bring themselves with them. The patterns follow, the emptiness follows, the unresolved inner war follows. You, however, are no longer running. You are rooted. You are no longer reacting to who they are. You are responding to who you've become. And that is why the ending is not loud or dramatic. It is calm. It is steady. It is final. Their downfall is not your victory. Your healing is. Their collapse is not your justice. Your peace is. You did not destroy them. You simply stopped abandoning yourself to save them, and in that moment, paths diverged. One stayed trapped in the consequences of their choices. The other walked forward into freedom. And that is how the narcissist destroys themselves, while you rise, not because of what they did to you, but because of who you chose to become. And if you have stayed with me until this moment, it's because something inside you already knows the truth. You didn't imagine what you lived through. You didn't overreact. You didn't fail. You survived an experience that was meant to shrink you, and instead it reshaped you. The confusion, the pain, the moments you questioned your worth, they were not signs of weakness. They were signs that you were waking up. This is your reminder that your story does not end with what was taken from you. It continues with what you are rebuilding. Every boundary you now hold, every moment of peace you protect, every time you choose yourself without guilt, those are victories no one can take away. You are not defined by the damage someone tried to cause. You are defined by the strength it took to walk away with your integrity intact. If this message reached you tonight, it reached you for a reason. Because there are still days when the memory hurts, when the questions return, when you wonder if healing should be further along by now. But healing is not a race. It is a return to your voice, your intuition, your sense of self. And you are already further than you think. Stay with this journey, stay curious, stay aware. The more you understand these patterns, the less power they have over you. And the more you choose clarity over chaos, the more your life begins to feel like your own again. So don't look back searching for closure in someone who could never give it. Look forward. Everything you need is already ahead of you. And if you're still listening, still breathing, still choosing growth, then the most powerful chapter of your life is just beginning.